who arrived at the grade for this comic book. We don't know much about CGC's graders. We don't know who they are. We don't even know if they're human. Let's take a look at some evidence linking AI to CGC up next on this video from Bronzeville Comics. Hey there, comic book community. This is Jim from Bronzeville Comics coming to you with another video. And before we get started, like, comment, subscribe, do all that great stuff. Follow us on Instagram, Bronzeville_comics. On Whatnot, Bronzeville_comics. We do sales every Monday night at 10 p.m. Eastern Time. And also check out our eBay store, link in the description below. So I gotten a little bit of a tip as to a tech company that was promoting a product on their website. And this tech company has been used and has testimonials by the parent company of CGC. So let's take a deep dive into what's going on here. So the tech company in question is Accrete, Accrete.ai. And if we look under their applications, the one that it pertains to the comic book grading industry and the collectibles grading industry in general is what they refer to as Treasure Hunter. And you can see the little icon looks like a little baseball card. Automated collectibles grading and valuation through the power of AI. So that automated collectibles grading is something I think that we're all interested in terms of how is CGC doing the grading? How will they be doing it in the future? I think it's inevitable that AI is going to be doing at least part of the grading for comic books. Obviously, you're not going to want to take, especially a pretty fragile comic, and scan every page. Or any comic. That's going to do damage to the book. But certainly the front and back cover, which is primarily where the grade resides. So here we see Treasure Hunter, automated collectibles authentication, grading, and valuation through the power of continuously learning visual AI. So let's break that down. And they talk about some of this a little bit later on their webpage. Authentication, meaning is it real? And I would imagine also is it restored? Grading, so giving the collectible, in the case of what we're interested in, the comic book, a grade on the scale that we're familiar with. 6, 6.57, 7.5, 9.2, 9.4, 6, 9.6, 9.8. And valuation. Now that's something that's a little bit different and not really in the purview of CGC other than to determine if they should charge you more for the book if it falls into a higher tier than you claimed it at. So if you claimed that the book was worth $200, and it turns out that instead of getting a 9.2, we got a 9.8, and it's worth $800. Maybe they charge you more. Not really. What here? Now you can see here this example of a card that condition near mint, 9 point, and it says centering, surface, corners, edges. And it gives each of those a score. And I can't tell. It looks like the scores are in half points. And they come to a 9-point total scale. Okay? So, and the power of continuously learning visual AI. Oops, I'm sorry. So if you're a grader for CGC, we're going to look at that example primarily because this is a comic book channel. As you're more experienced, you become familiar with certain books, the types of defects they commonly have, the types of printer defects they commonly have, and what is a defect versus what is part of the artwork. For instance, Ultimate Fallout 4, for an inexperienced eye, looks like there may be a spine tick on the front cover, but it's actually part of the artwork of Thor's hammer. So if you take a look at dozens and dozens of scans of that particular book in different grades, it will give you more information. So Treasure Hunter performs grading, attribution, and authentication of collectibles such as trading and baseball cards, coins, and comic books objectively and at a scale with human-level accuracy. Treasure Hunter boosts throughput. Basically, throughput means the amount of work that can go through a system. That translates directly to revenue growth and introduces novel subscription-based profit centers that were previously unimaginable. So that second sentence is more for the company. We're not really interested in the profit centers that are unimaginable. We want the profit centers from the value of our books because we'd rather have a 9.8 than a 9.6. So if we explore more, that's what's down here. So we're not going to skip that. Now, look at this. This is interesting, and this directly links Accrete, this company, with their Treasure Hunter product to CGC. Accrete's AI, and this is a quote. We got these little big big quotation marks here in blue. Accrete's AI has achieved expert level accuracy and will dramatically increase our throughput, meaning our work product, the amount of work product that can go through the system, directly translating to revenue growth. Right? That's what it appears that CGC is most interested in right now. What Accrete does for CGC right now, would have taken hundreds of man hours, thousands of man hours. It would have been almost impossible. Mark Salzberg, Certified Collectibles Group, a Blackstone portfolio company. Now, Certified Collectibles Group is the parent company of which CGC is part. So these companies for Certified Collectibles Group, the coins, NGC, NCS, Conservation Services, Paper Money, CGC are comic books. Okay, that we know about that. CCS, the pressing service that goes along with them. CSG, Certified Sports Guarantee, and this is where they probably have the opportunity to grow the most, is to kind of get into get a larger market share of sports cards. Stamps, ASG, and this, I guess, is just artists, museums. I guess this would be largely artwork and other art-related items. So we're interested in CGC. So the basic thing you need to know is that CGC is a company of CCG, Certified Collectibles Group. So when Mark Salzberg is speaking about what it's doing right now, the right now part, right, does that mean that it's being used for comic books? Comic books are a little more, what's the word I'm looking for? A little more nuanced to grade than cards, coins, stamps, because a comic book has more than just two sides. You have the inside covers, the tanning potentially on those that you may not see in a cover that has lots of color. If stains go through the cover, the ability to better see creases and what's going on in the interior pages as well. So here's what's possible. Predictive value for collectors. This, I don't think, really is how the market values an item, economic conditions, et cetera, et cetera. This would, be an instrument that would be more used for people who buy and sell items, graded comic books in our instance. Now, here's the second thing: increased efficiency. Replicates with human accuracy the work of expert human graders, dramatically reducing repetitive work and error rates while simultaneously increasing overall throughput. Okay? Replicates with human accuracy, so they're claiming that the AI is just as accurate in grading as a human being, an experienced human being. Reducing repetitive work and error rates. Humans are going to make errors. They're tired, they get distracted, you miss something. Computers are less likely to miss that. Now, here's something interesting. Replenish diminishing talent pool. Replenish and augment a sparse and difficult to train talent pool at expert level accuracy. And this is something that in the community we've been talking about a lot lately. CGC's gotten backed up. They've been hiring people for $15 an hour. We don't know if that entry level for $15 an hour is going to graders or people who were typing up the labels, people in the shipping department, people in the working in the warehouse. We don't know exactly who's getting paid what. But the talent pool, and we know that certain industries are having a difficult time maintaining employees. So that's something there from a corporate point of view. You'd want to, much rather, it's much cheaper to get AI. They don't need benefits. Increased consumer confidence. So this is where we come in as the consumers. Do we have more confidence in AI? Detailed reasoning and attribution of explainability of AI generated grading scores provides the transparency required to increase consumer confidence and engagement with outputs. We want more transparency from CGC. And I'll talk about that a little bit later. So differentiated features. Extract the collectible piece from an image and passes only the object to the grading model, ensuring no unnecessary artifacts are introduced into the grading process. Right? I'm not exactly sure what that means. If you have any insight, maybe give me a comment down below. Ensemble deep learning models. Using an ensemble method, we train a series of deep learning models to generate low-dimensional representations of all images in the database, storing both local and global features. Low-level representations of new images can then be compared to this database and efficiently attributed to the correct object using a nearest neighbor search. Okay, what book is this? What does it look like? Consistency benchmarking, score human-defined features, and leverage consistency benchmarking, image centering, corner quality. That's specifically talking about items that are centering talks largely about trading cards. Independent scores using multi-task learning algorithm. Natural interaction, seamless integration. Our data outputs provide feedback. Natural interaction. This is a little more technical than I am familiar with. And I'm going to put a link to the Accrete website, which is pretty easy, in the description here. You can explore this on your own, and you might have more data hooks. Okay, let's go back. Machine-generated grades. Okay, that's something I think we're interested in. Merging human-defined feature scores together with the region of interest extraction in a residual neural network model, the system outputs a grading score for each object on par with expert human graders. Dynamic continual learning. As the continuously learning visual AI ingests additional images, the accuracy of the system continues improving. Accrete's continuous learning technology has the unique ability to adapt dynamically, like a human, learning and becoming smarter as it incorporates new information and contexts. The more pictures that are in the system, the better the AI is going to be able to differentiate flaws in a particular book. Transfer learning. One continuous learning model improves accuracy and handles various image qualities, additional artifacts, and object types through transfer learning. And they can't reach that site. Oh, no, wait. Okay, this is something that is a little bit above AI you can trust. Okay. So explore more treasure hunter use cases. Counterfeit detection for collectibles and luxury goods. Passports, driver's license, other IDs. Interesting. Image-based grading. That's, I think, what we're most interested in. Image and social media chatter-based attribution. Image-based authentic engagement. Scan copy ID. Okay, this is not a link, an active link, image-based grading. I think that's what we're most interested in, is the image-based grading. So let's talk a little bit about what this means. Number one, do I think that they're using AI widespread in grading comic books at this moment? No, I don't. I think that there's too much inconsistency in at least the anecdotal evidence we're seeing when you look at other YouTubers that submit a large number of books to CGC, and sometimes they get back a lot of 9/8s, and sometimes they get back almost no 9/8s. And when they expected approximately the same results, well, that leads me to believe that there is still a good amount of human error involved. Will they use AI in the future? I think almost certainly. I think it's just a matter of when rather than if. The question is, will CGC be transparent with the consumer as to how they're grading the books? Now, I don't think they're going to be able to entirely use AI for comic books. You could take a sports card and look at the corners, the edges, the centering, the surface, and probably be able to come up with a pretty accurate grade for the book, for that item using AI. I would imagine similar for stamps and coins, but I have no familiarity with those. I have some familiarity with sports cards. There's only a front and a back. In comic books, it's a little more complicated. For instance, if I take a bunch of cards from the 1974 Topps baseball set and I put them all together, they're going to be almost exactly the same size, no matter where they came from in the print runs. There's going to be very little differentiation in there. But if I take, so especially for older cards, being able to measure very precisely the size of the card would enable someone to detect trimming rather easily. If you take a bunch of Marvel comics from 1974, raw, unbagged, unboarded, and put them in a stack, there's going to be differentiation in the sizes of those books. Cover overhang, staple misplacement. There are a lot of those things that go into the manufacture of a comic book, especially as you go further back in the history of comics. Now, one thing that's interesting is that baseball cards have been graded based on the production process. Centering is a big part of grading a baseball card. That has nothing to do with the way the card has been handled. It's all with the way the card is printed. Now, comic books have never penalized in the grading process for production. If you have a printer crease, it's not supposed to be taken away, counted against the book. If it's miswrapped, very common for years and years. The wraps on similar books is wildly different. You know, sometimes you see a good part of the back cover coming across. The staple placement, right? Especially books from the 60s. Sometimes the staples are on the spine. Sometimes they're on the front cover. Sometimes they're on the back cover. There's very little consistency there. So comics differ quite a bit. I do think with comic books that there is going to have to be still a human element involved. At least in the way that technology exists now. Because if you take a comic book, let me find a raw book. I must have a raw book around here somewhere. I know I do. Ah, here it is. Okay, so this particular book, this is a flawed book. If I look at the cover and compare it to other copies of Justice League of America 193 and put it in AI, I can scan for flaws. Right? You can see dirt, you can see creases, whatever. Right? But staple stress, you can see the spine is not precisely lined up. And it's even a little bit like here, the top staple, if we notice, is right pretty much on the black, whereas the bottom staple, well, the staple's on the black, but, there's a slight bit of the back cover showing. What's interesting about this book is the book's incomplete because this preview for All-Star Squadron has been taken out. It is no longer in the book. And so you need someone to verify that. There's no, I can't see right now where I would trust a computer to flip through the pages of Hulk 181 to see if the Marvel value stamp is there or not. Is the book complete? Is the centerfold attached? Those are things that may still be, at least for the time being, for the foreseeable future, still in the human element realm. Now, I'm sure as they go through this process, there's a lot of checks and balances, and they take books graded, you take a whole bunch of books, different eras, different titles that are graded by human beings, have the AI grade it, and then compare. Because initially, the human beings are the standard. That's the standard that has been set by CGC for the last 20 years. The AI needs to be the same as that standard, and that's what they claim they are. Now, do you trust AI? And I kind of use this example. AI is pervading our lives in so many ways. More ways than I think we're even capable of comprehending. Now, one of the ones that people look at is the self-driving car. People are like, I don't trust the self-driving cars driven by computers. And I usually say, well, what's the square root of 8,512? Yeah, I know. If you have a pocket calculator, it will get it instantaneously. Now, there's also the situation of how many times do you see a spinny circle come up on your computer, or you can't reload a page because of shoddy Wi-Fi on your computer. There are concerns. It's not perfect. AI in grading books is not going to be perfect, but is it going to be at least as trustworthy as human beings? And I think ultimately the answer there is yes. I think from the collector and the person who's submitting books for grading, I think that one of the I'll say disadvantages of this is less will sneak past the graders, right? So if you have a book that's almost perfect and there's one tiny flaw and you have to see it by a certain angle in the light, they may not. A human being may miss that more than a computer. The other thing is, as I said, production flaws. I was at Streetside Anthony's the other day. He had a 9.0 of NYX number 4. And it had a blemish on the cover, but the blemish on the cover was a production error. Something had been stuck on the roller when it was printed and caused like a little bubble in the printing. That's not something that is supposed to be detract from the grade. Now, the human being made that mistake. Would AI make the same mistake? Therein lies the question. I think the biggest concern that people would have is the transparency from CGC. Now, another benefit of this, so here are two benefits from AI grading. Number one, if it's better going to pick up flaws, then a 9.8 graded by AI is going to have minimal flaws and probably has a greater probability of being more flawless than a human graded 9.8. The other advantage, so if you're buying comics that are already graded, you might have a little more assurance as to how that book was graded. if a and the other advantage is if the throughput is increased, then maybe that enormous backlog, although maybe they got to get some computers working in CCS, that enormous backlog could be diminished because they've been hiring people, but maybe the hiring isn't keeping pace with the number of books that are going through the system. That's to the consumer's advantage if the books come back more quickly, right? So all of a sudden that book that is related to a movie that's coming out in 4 months, if you have it back in 3 months, that's to your benefit. If you have it back in 6 months, the movie's already passed, and you might lose value in your collectible. I don't know. What do you think? I'm more than open to hearing your questions and concerns about this. It's potentially another change. I think they are already doing it for cards and coins and stamps. The question is, how is AI going to adapt to comic books? And how does that change the industry? How does that change the grading industry? Is CGC, CBCS or PGX going to have a similar product? You know, I would imagine that since they do so many different types of collectibles, they may be able to lock this company's AI down in an exclusive contract, and other companies would have to find other tech companies to create similar products for them. I mean, in theory, I think the idea is fairly simple. You have dozens, if not hundreds, if not thousands of scans of a particular book. You take another scan. The AI compares it to the original book. So if you have two of the same book, like, what do we have here? I have a couple of the same book here. Right? And there are hundreds of this book scanned. Some of them got 9.8, some got 9.6, 9.4, 9.2. And then what does the computer see? A high-res camera may be better than the human eye, especially if someone's been working for 7 hours that day, hasn't had enough coffee, didn't sleep well the night before because they have a newborn baby at home. All sorts of things that impact human beings. They might miss stuff. Now, how does this affect resubmission? We've seen many YouTubers get CGC books back and say they weren't happy with the grade, they're going to resubmit them. Bryce Comics often says, this book, if you submit it 5 times, sometimes it's going to get a 9.4, sometimes it get a 9.6, sometimes it may get a 9.8. It's kind of a borderline book. And even when a computer's grading it, is it precise enough? I mean, we're used to the human mind of a grader, and even someone that's grading to try to see what they're going to submit will look at a book and automatically kind of go down from 9.8 to 9.6 to 9.4 to 9.2 to 9 to 8.5 to 8 and so on. Picking up the flaws. Even if you're just counting the flaws, in your mind, 9.1, 9.03, 8.972 are not part of your thought process. But I would imagine for a computer, those decimals are there and everything is just rounded off. Now, is it rounded off or rounded down? Is an 8.92 a 9.0 or an 8.5? 8.75. Where does that fall? Those are, I guess, legitimate questions as you add up the flaws. Because you can count the flaws, but a computer can count and measure the flaws. How large is the spine tick? How many microns long is it? How many square microns is it? All of those things are possible if you have enough high-res camera. So just a lot of things to think about, but it's obvious that the company that CGC is a part of is already using AI in their grading. Are they using it in comic books? How will it affect wait times and the grades? Will we get fewer 9.8s? Or more 9.8s? Or is there something that can be put into the system that will kind of limit the number of 9.8s in a particular book? Who knows? How is it programmed? I mean, AI, learns, but it has to be initially programmed with parameters. So Well, we shall see. I came across this information on this website. It was interesting because it relates directly to the hobby that we're all interested in, and that we spend a lot of effort. Many people, myself included, cleaning and pressing books, sending them in, unboxing them, selling them. CGC is an integral part of the buying and selling of comic books. There's no way around that. And so the question becomes, how much of a difference does this have in the hobby? So anyway, I just wanted to share that with you. I thought it was quite interesting. Let me know what you think in the comments below. In the meantime, I got a couple other videos here. And this is Jim saying until next time, enjoy your comics.